Hey guys, I'm going to go over how to make your own retro skateboard. I'm going to go over some of the supplies and tools I use to put this whole project together. Firstly, wood. It's the backbone of the whole project. This is some red oak I got from Home Depot. They make a ton of different sizes and lengths. I also got independent trucks. These are kind of the brand name industry standard for trucks. Super durable. You're not going to break these things. Plus I've got orange polyurethane bushings. I like orange. Two of them. Definitely gotta have two of them. I just went with like El Cheapo bearings for this project. I don't think you need anything fancy really. I mean, unless you're gonna be doing some like crazy tricks like or trying to go really fast, just regular bearings will do. I don't even think these have a brand. They're just the red bearings. I also invested in some Powell Peralta 95mm mini cubic wheels. These things are tight. They look so retro, but they stick and they're soft. So if you're going to shoot video with your board, this is the way to go. A little bit bigger wheel and a little bit softer wheel. It'll kind of smooth everything out. If you have little wheels, they go like clickety clank. And that's kind of not the kind of audio you want to be picking up if you're shooting video. Screws, these are just standard length screws. You'd have to get longer ones from the skate shop if you were adding a riser or doing anything fancy, but these do the job. They also have nylock ends. They have like a little piece of nylon in the end of the nut that keeps them from coming off. Works great. Yeah, again, you really don't need anything fancy. As for tools, this is the main beast thing that I use. This is my jigsaw. Got a really cheap one, Black & Decker. Put some fancy Bosch blades in it. Works like a champ. So good. Has like little adjustments on the side. You can go straight, left, right, whatever. Also got my trusty drill here. Works perfect, man. I love cordless drills. I use this for everything. If I ever owned a dentist shop, I would totally bust these out on my poor, innocent victim customers. Gloves. My dear lord, I have like literally cut the ends of my fingers off. Use gloves. Ratchet with whatever the heck socket you need on the end. I don't even know. Pencil. Screwdriver. Phillips. Not a flathead. Phillips. Tape measure. I use this for laying out my design and making sure that it was symmetrical. Wood finish, varnish. This takes a long time to dry, but man, it turns kind of like a bone looking finish into being like a really dark, rich color. Worth it. Sandpaper, 220. You really don't need anything finer than that. We're going to use this to go over the edges to kind of round them off. And some drill bits. I only use the one size. I think it was a 1/8 inch. I'm not sure. I like these rigid ones. They're like cobalt steel all the way through. No coatings, just solid cobalt. And that's it. Let's get started. First step. Laying out your wood, so to speak. I just went over this and laid a bunch of marks down like every 3 inches so that when I started to draft out the whole design, I could make sure that both sides of the design were like the same dimensions, the same size. So if at one point of the design was like 2 inches from the side of the wood, I'd make sure on the other side that it was also 2 inches away from that side of the wood. And I just freehanded this. I freehanded one side and then I copied it to the other side using my measurements. Worked out pretty well. It took a little bit of time. I screwed up a lot, honestly, but that's why I use a pencil. This is kind of what it looks like after you have it drafted. Again, gloves. Dear Lord, gloves, ear protection, eye protection. Man, just use protection, people. Use protection. And when I went over this, I like to use my hand as a guide. Instead of just putting like both hands on the saw or one hand on the saw on the wood. I like to kind of guide the saw with my spare hand there, and I go really slow. If you go quick, it gets a lot of burrs and they suck, but if you go really slow, it'll be a pretty smooth cut, and you can get really detailed in how you're cutting if you just really take your time. You don't gotta like push it through there. You don't gotta go 1,000 miles an hour. You just go as slow as you can, honestly. And if you do this slowly and smoothly enough, at the end of the project, you won't even have to like sand the sides of it much to get it to be smooth. I also used a really fine blade in this instead of a rough cut one. It goes a little bit slower, but it's also a whole lot cleaner. There you have it. Board is cut out. Whoop, whoop. Next thing's just sanding it. The edges are kind of rough. The sides kind of have some like marks on it from the saw going over it. So I just went over the whole thing with sandpaper. I got rid of all those pencil marks. They came right out. With this 220 grit, you can actually like round off the edges. You can make the whole board just look super perfect. Also, if you have any like finger marks on it, like there's oil from your fingers, if it gets in the board when it's time to varnish, it'll kind of like show up. So going over the whole thing and making sure it's all been sanded just a little bit will help make sure that the end of it works out. So to get the holes drilled to hold the trucks onto the board, basically all you have to do is lay the trucks down on the board where you want them, use a pencil to mark the holes, and use a drill to go through those marks. You can measure it out with like a square or from the sides or however you want to try to make it as square as possible, but really if you can eyeball it like I did, like they came out pretty dang straight. Dear Lord, this is the most satisfying of all the steps. You just rub some stain into your board and it goes from being like this chunk of wood you cut out a few minutes ago to being like the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. All the wood grain comes out. Oh man, it's beautiful. You're gonna love this part. Anyways, I like to use gloves for this kind of stuff. Stain's not the most toxic of things to work with, but it'll stay on you, man. It's not cool. I don't want to have brown fingertips for the next few days. So gloves go on. I just use my key to open this. I'm kind of lazy. I didn't want to go get a screwdriver. I'm sorry. Whatever. A key works. And also, I kind of screwed up here. I got a ton of this stain on the ground on my girlfriend's patio, and it did not go over very well. So before you start this kind of thing, I would totally recommend putting down some newspaper or plastic or just something besides your partner's bare patio. Yeah. And you just go with the grain. That's it. You just rub it in. You rub it until it looks right. And then you wipe off the excess. If there's like streaks sitting on top, just wipe them off with a dry cloth. It's really easy. It's super easy to get a super even looking stain. So before you put your clear coat on, you gotta let your stain sit for like 8 hours, which seems like forever. But if you don't, your varnish, your lacquer, your finish will not stick. So give it its time. I ended up just getting like some cheap clear coat from Home Depot, some spray stuff. It works really well. It dries in like minutes. It says you need to wait like an hour before you touch it. No, it's like 3 minutes. It's amazing. Then again, we're in Vegas here, so that might have something to do with it. And then the last bit, assembly. It's like the most fun part, really. You're like, I did all this work, and then bam, it just comes together. This is also where you hope and pray that you drilled your holes right. Anyways, you want to keep a little bit of slack in the wheels. If you over tighten the nuts, it'll wear out the bearings, and they won't be smooth. So if you can just have enough tension to keep them on there, but just like a hair paper width of room there for them to wiggle around, they will last way longer, be way quieter, and squeak less. Yes, they squeak. If your wheels are kind of worn out, they actually squeak. And again, if you're shooting video, you don't want squeaks. So don't over tighten these guys. $1,000-mile assembly video. Oh my goodness. I ran out of breath. Anyways, add your screws in there. Bam, bam, bam. Such a quick screw application. And if the screws don't quite fit in the trucks, you can screw them into the trucks. You know, if the alignment isn't quite right, you can kind of get away with using a screwdriver to screw them in the rest of the way. Definitely had to do this with one of my trucks. Kind of hurried on the drilling apparently. So there you go. I couldn't quite get that one screw in, so I had to screw it in by hand. And there you have it. Look at that beast, man. Fully assembled, ready to go. Beautiful, smooth, vintage finish, vintage looking wheels. Awesome hardware. I mean, it took less than $100 to put this whole thing together. I think the total bill at the end of the day was like $75 for all the materials and wheels and everything. I mean, it's pretty awesome. Bam! End product. Beautiful. I can't believe how easy this project was. I want to do it again. Seriously. Anyways, thanks for looking. Hope you enjoyed learning how to make your own retro skateboard. I mean, what's cooler than that, you know? Like, you can buy a lot of stuff, but it doesn't feel nearly as good as making your own. Thanks.